Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be talking about graphing sine and cosine functions with a horizontal shift. That means we're going to be moving to the left and to the right. You're going to need your notes, two colored pencils, and then also a pencil, regular pencil or pen, and a calculator. All right, let's get started. When we look at this, this should be that bright yellow piece of paper that you got from me. This is what we need to fill out. So when we're doing these ones, we are adding the parentheses with the x minus h in it. So to determine the amplitude, that's going to stay the same. We're going to do the absolute value of a, which would just be a. Then to determine the period, always the same. We're going to start with that 2 pi divided by their b, whatever's after sine or cosine before the parentheses. So over b. Now when we're determining our increments, we're going to take whatever we got for the period and divide by 4. Or if you're working with a fraction, if your period was a fraction, you're going to do 1/4 times the period. Now when we do our horizontal shift, this is the new one, our horizontal shift, we're going to do whatever h is. So it's going to be h. Now remember, this is the one that's kind of opposite. If it's negative, we're moving to the right. If it's positive, we're moving to the left. Now we're going to use this information for steps 1 through 4 to label our axes thoroughly and create our graph of our function. All right, here's our example number 1. First things first, we need to find our amplitude. So to find amplitude, we're going to take the number that's out in front, the absolute value of that number, so it's just going to be 2. Next thing we're going to do is work on the period. That's the number that comes after sine, so it's going to be 2 pi divided by 2, which is just pi. Then our increments, that's what we count by. We take whatever we got for our period, so we get pi divided by 4. Now we're going to be working with our horizontal shift. So we're going to move left or right. Since it's negative, we're going to go right. Pi over 2. Now, since we have all this information, we're going to create our graph. So when we set this up, though, this time, ladies and gentlemen, our x and y axes, since I know I'm going to be moving to the right, I'm going to make my y-axis a little bit further to the left. So when I set this up, I'm going to move right pi over 2. So that's the first thing I want to find. So if I set up my increments, my first one's pi all over 4, so that's not it. My next one is 2 pi over 4. Now, this is where, ladies and gentlemen, we might have to make sure we know how to simplify, because 2 pi over 4 is the same as pi over 2. So this is where we're shifting to. Once we find that, we're going to put in our horizontal shift. So we move to the right, pi over 2. So you need to pick your colored pencil, and you need to create a vertical line at pi over 2. Once we have that line, we're going to go 4 to the right, 4 to the left. So after you find where that goes, you don't necessarily have to worry about simplifying anymore. Now from our horizontal line, my green line, I need to go 4 more to the right. So I'm going to have 4 more dashes here. The next one's going to be 3 pi over 4, and then 4 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4, and 6 pi over 4. I have my 4, so I can be done there. Now I have to go 4 to the left. If I look, I've moved to the right, so I already have 1. Pi over 4 is my first one. 0 counts as a point, so I have 2. I only need 2 more. So I'm going to have negative pi over 4 and negative 2 pi over 4. Once I have that done, I can fill in my amplitude. My amplitude is 2, so I'm going to go up 2. Make sure you put your label on that. And then I'm going to go down 2. So this is going to be negative 2. Once we get there, we can graph it. But it's really important, ladies and gentlemen, we're not starting at the y-axis anymore. We've moved, so you have to start at that colored line. In my case, it's always going to be green. My horizontal shift is always green. I'm working with sine. So sine starts in the middle. So I'm going to start right here in the middle, but this is a negative sign. So remember, if it's negative for sine, I'm going to go down first. So my first one, I'm going to go down. Second one, I'm going to go to the middle. Third one, I'm going to go all the way to the top. Fourth one, I'm going to be back down at the middle. I stop and start at the same points. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm good to go here. Now I can connect them. Put my arrow at the end. Now I'm going to go the other way. Since it's negative, I'm going to go up or to the top. When I go to the left, now I have to go back to the middle. You guys, you can't forget the x-axis, it's a point. So you have to put one right there at 0, 0. Back down to the bottom. And then we're back to the middle where we started. We stop and start at the same spot of the time. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. Now we can connect them with our nice curvy line. Put an arrow at the end. There we go. Example 1 is completed. Now domain and range. Domain, always all real numbers. Range is determined by our amplitude. So my range is y has to be less than or equal to 2. Y has to be greater than or equal to negative 2. Or if you wish, you can also write it like this. Alright, moving on. Last example for the day. Here we go. Amplitude. Start with the number in front of everything. So the absolute value of 3 equals 3. When we find the period, it's the number after cosine before the parentheses. So we have 2 pi divided by 1/2. Now you're more than welcome to plug in your calculator. If you want to do it by hand, it's going to look like this. 2 pi over 1 divided by 1/2, which when we divide fractions, we need to turn it into, keep switch flip. So we're going to have 2 pi over 1 times 2 over 1, which is going to be 4 pi. So this equals 4 pi. Now our increments, what we're going to count by, we take whatever we got for our period divided by 4. So I'm going to have 4 pi all over 4, which just equals pi. Now, for our horizontal shift. Our horizontal shift is what's right here. It was a plus pi, so that means we're going to go left pi. Now, since I'm moving to the left when I set up my x and y axes, I'm going to want to make my x-axis to the right, so I have enough room. Now I have to go left pi, so I'm going to work on my left side first because that's where I'm working. So I'm going to have negative pi. Well, that's where it's going to be, so I'm going to put my horizontal shift in there. 1 is, that is in there. I need to go 4 to the right, 4 to the left. So if I'm going to the right, 0, 0, that's 1 point. 2, 3, 4. This is going to be pi, 2 pi, and 3 pi. Now when I go to the left, I'm going to have negative 2 pi, negative 3 pi, negative 4 pi, and negative 5 pi. Have 4 to the left, 4 to the right. Once that is all in place, I can set up my amplitude. My amplitude is 3. So I'm going to go up 3. And I'm going to go down 3. Make sure you label it. I need to see your labels. From here, remember, we're not starting at the center anymore. We're starting at my green line, my horizontal shift. If I look at my horizontal shift, I'm working with cosine. It's just regular cosine. So I'm going to start high. To the right, I'm going to go down. So I go down to my center at 0, 0. Back down all the way to the negative amplitude. Back to the center. And then to the top. connect my points. I stopped and started in the same spot. Make sure when we get to that last point, you have to curve it down. Now here we're going, go down to the center, down to the bottom amplitude, back to the center, and we're going to stop where we started, right there on the top, the high point. We have all points. We're going to connect them, put an arrow at the end, and that is it for the day, ladies. And oh, nope, domain and range. Sorry, I almost forgot again. Domain and range, we're going to talk about all real numbers. Range is determined by our amplitude. So our amplitude is 3 and negative 3, so y has to be less than or equal to 3. Y has to be greater than or equal to negative 3. If you want to write it like that, or if you wish to write it like this, you may. Either way is fine, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, now that is all I have for you today. I hope you go out and have a wonderful day, and I will be seeing you later. Bye!